My name is Officer Joy Clappel, and I am a police officer here in the Township of Livingston. I've been a police officer for 24 wonderful years. I am the Vice President of the Essex County Crime Prevention Officers Association and a member of the Community Policing Unit at the department. So this is the type of things that my unit does. Part of our job is to try to prevent crimes from happening, which is what we're trying to do today. I'd like to educate everyone here so that hopefully you will not fall prey to a scam. So I could stand up here all day long and talk about scams. As you know, even as technology progresses, there are always new scams. You know, with the dawn of the internet and things like that, it just spawned more ways that people try to scam others. So obviously we don't have time for that. I will touch on a few of the more common scams that we see. But really, I want to give you some red flags, some things that if you see this or hear this, it's going to make the little hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you're going to say, that doesn't sound right. That might be a scam. The first thing is somebody contacts you. Now, I'm not saying that's always a scam, but I want you to be more careful if they've reached out to you versus you reaching out to them, especially if they're asking for things that they shouldn't be, like personal information about you. If they're offering some sort of bait, if they're saying, you won this huge prize, or I'm going to give you a loan at this incredibly low interest rate, or things like that that make you say, oh, I'm interested in that. That's how they're going to get you. They're going to make things very, enticing, that you're like very interested in it. Okay. They're asking for personal information. If somebody calls you and is asking for personal information, most of the time it is a scam. Companies that you deal with already have your information. They're not going to call you and ask you for it. Now, if you call them, then they want you to verify your identity because they want to make sure it's really you. But if they've reached out to you and they're asking you for personal information, I'm going to say almost always it's a scam. So what I would suggest is say, and once in a while it's legitimate. Let's say you have a Visa card and you get a call and they say, hey, this is Visa, and we noticed fraudulent activity on your card. That could be the case, but make sure it's really Visa. What I would suggest is that you say, let me call you back. Get out your Visa card. Look at the number on your Visa card. Don't take any phone number from them, because again, they're going to give you the number they want you to call. So look at the number that's on your card, call customer service. My mom is 92 years old. Unfortunately, my dad passed away 15 years ago, so she lives by herself, but she is still taking care of herself, lives on her own, everything. And when she gets things like this, she'll call me and she'll say, hey, I got this message, or I got this, this email or whatever, and she thinks it's suspicious. And, most of the time, I say, Mom, just delete it, that's a scam. But one time, like I was just saying to you, it was her credit card company, and it was legitimately somebody had tried to use her credit card fraudulently. So I told her, call the number on your card. Another sign of a scam is usually they're looking for you to give them money for them to give you something. For example, they say, you won the sweepstakes, $2 million. But before we give it to you, we need you to pay the taxes. So we want you to pay us $20,000, and then we're going to send you your money. Don't do it. Okay? Be very, very careful about people asking for payment for things up front. When you win prizes and stuff, they cannot have you buy things, even like the old Publishers Clearinghouse. They make you think if you bought magazines, you had a better chance of winning. You do not. Okay? They can't make you buy things to enter these sweepstakes and things. Gift cards. If anybody ever asks you to pay for something in gift cards, it is a scam. No legitimate company, government organization or anything like that will ever ask you to pay for anything with gift cards. The only time you should ever be buying gift cards is if it's, your grandson's birthday or your best friend's anniversary, whatever like that. They're only for gifts. Do not ever pay for anything with gift cards. I can tell you right now, it's a scam, okay? Because Apple is not gonna need gift cards to pay for things. And there also were some scams going around where, it was a government agency saying, pay us in gift cards. Now, while I would love the police department to accept gift cards and give them to me, it doesn't happen. So anytime anybody's asking for gift cards, do not do it. The other thing I want you to be very careful of, and this is kind of an old school thing, but it's still around, is wire transfers. And usually, people are doing that to send money out of the country. But be very careful because scammers will also ask you to wire them money while pretending to be somebody that they're not. Number of years ago, I got an email. There was a sister, a nun, that ran the food pantry here in town. And I got an email from her saying that she needed my help. And at first, I didn't think anything was wrong. I said, "Oh, sister, how can I help you?" And then she started saying, "Oh, well, I'm down in Mexico with my cousin, and my cousin needs this operation. I'm trying to get money." And of course, then I knew it was a scam, but she wanted me, whoever it was, wanted me to wire money to Mexico, for this, to help this person out. So again, if somebody wants you to wire money, not saying it's not legitimate, but just be very, very careful around that. So let's talk a little bit about some possible health insurance scams, because again, there are scams around everything, okay? People, are always trying to make money illegally if they can. If you go to the mall and you see, something set up there, hey, we're giving away, blood tests today, things like that, just be careful. Again, when you've been around a while, you can kind of get a feeling about things. And if you think something is not right, it probably isn't. So anytime you see where they're offering free tests, or even if they say, oh, free equipment, oh, you need a new wheelchair, we got it for you for free. There's usually some sort of scam involved there. Always do things, through your doctor's office, so you know exactly what's being ordered, exactly what tests you're getting, and go to a legitimate place for them. Because when you start dealing with some of these other things, they may actually, do tests, but then they're billing for things they didn't do. It's best just, to go through your doctor's office for stuff like that. Never sign blank insurance claim forms. Just like anything else, don't sign anything unless you know what you're signing, okay? Because again, if you sign that, they can charge for whatever they want to, and you've already acknowledged it. So just be very careful about signing things without reading them. I don't know if any of you get prescription drugs off the internet, because you can. Again, just be very, very careful when you do that. There's something called the Verified Internet Pharmacy Practice Site. It's VIPPS, and that symbol will appear on a site if it's legitimate. So always look to make sure that the place you're going has, that symbol on there, because otherwise they could be sending you who knows what. They could be sending you drugs that make you sick. You don't really know what they are. So again, not saying, because you can save money, not saying you shouldn't do it, but just be smart about doing it if you're going to. Another thing that we see are scams involving cashier's checks. And I don't know if any of you do any business on like Facebook Marketplace or anything online, but what we see happening is, let's say I'm selling my lawnmower and I have it listed on Facebook Marketplace, and somebody tells me, I want to buy your lawnmower. And I say, great, it's $300. And they come over with the cashier's check and they say, they made a mistake. They made this check out for $3,000 instead of $300. They say, but I'll give it to you. Just give me the difference. So you give me $2,700 back, and then we'll call it even. And believe it or not, people will do it because they think they have this cashier's check. And I will tell you that a lot of them are really good. And even the bank will take the check, and it's a few days before the bank finally realizes, oh, this check isn't good. And then guess what? You're out the $2,700 you gave them. You're out your lawnmower because you gave them that too. And now you have bank fees that they're going to charge you on top of it. Be very careful with cashier's checks. If somebody wants to do business with you that way, tell them, hey, okay, I'm going to meet you at the bank and you can get the cashier's check done then, and then you'll know it's real. Okay, because otherwise, again, it's very hard to tell if they're real or not. And like I said, even the bank a lot of times can't tell initially. So just, be wary of anything like that. I think this has been around for long enough, but I'll just touch on it briefly. The grandparent scam. Have any of you ever had anybody call you with the grandparent scam? See? So what the grandparent scam is, somebody will call you and they have no idea who they're calling. I've gotten this scam, and I'm not a grandparent yet, but they will call you. They're cold calling. They just will keep calling because eventually they'll get one and it's worth their time. So they call, and when somebody answers, they will say, hello, grandma or grandpa. They won't say who it is. You'll say, hello, grandma or grandpa. They're waiting for the person to kind of guess who it might be. So my children's names are Violet and Corey. So if it was my mom, if it was a female voice, she would say, Violet, is that you? And if it's a male voice, she would say, Corey, is that you? Now they know the name. They didn't do anything. Now they have it. Yes, Grandma, it's Violet. So now they're in, and they will tell the grandparent that something terrible has happened. It's usually one of two things. Usually they've been in a terrible accident, or they've been arrested and they need money. And the other thing they will say is, please don't call mom and dad because they will be so mad at me. That's why I'm calling you, grandma or grandpa, because I know you'll help me out and you're not going to be mad at me. If you ever get anything like this. Another way that they try to scam you is they make something very urgent. You have to act right now or something bad is going to happen. So you're thinking, oh no, my grandchild isn't in a jail. And a lot of times they'll say they're out of the country, in Mexico, in a jail cell. And you're thinking, I must act immediately. Of course you want to help your family. So they want to get that sense of urgency where you're not really thinking clearly because you want to act immediately. Take a breath and just think for a second, okay? My granddaughter Violet says she is, in jail in Mexico. Call Violet's phone back. I'm sure you have your grandchildren's, phone numbers, or call, the parents of that child and say, where's Violet right now? Oh, she's at college. Okay, then never mind. Take a second and verify things. Don't fall into their trap of that you have to act immediately. And of course, if you think your grandchild has been involved in a terrible accident, obviously it's important, but not so dire that if you take 3 minutes, it's really going to make a difference. Okay. So again, step back from the situation just for a second and think about it and verify what's going on. Telemarketers, they're, with the dawn of the internet, telemarketers can make their phone number anything they want. They can, make it from out of the state. They can make it from your town to make it think, you think maybe it's more legitimate. My brother one time got a call from himself. His cell phone was ringing and he looked down and it was his phone number calling him. And it's almost like too tempting not to answer. You're almost like, I have to find out who this is because it's me calling. So what I tell my mom and everybody else that I speak to about this, if you don't recognize the number, don't answer it. If it is legitimately somebody that has business with you, they're going to leave a message. Most of the time, these scammers will not leave you a message. Once in a while, they will. I don't know if you remember the IRS scam that was going around a few years ago. They actually would leave a message on your answering machine saying, this is the IRS. You're going to be, arrested for non-payment of taxes. again, that sense of urgency. I'm going to get arrested. I got to do something about this immediately. Okay. Again, anytime somebody's putting pressure on you, just again, take a step back and take a breath and just think about what they're saying to you really. Because the IRS scam, they made their phone number come up as Washington, D.C. It looks legitimate. Again, they're threatening you with arrest. There was another one going around, where you didn't show up for jury duty and you're going to be arrested. Now they text you too now. I don't know, did anybody get the Easy Pass one? Yep. I think most of us got that. So it said, you have Easy Pass fines. You're going to get, again, I think your license was going to be suspended. There's another one that's going around recently where I think you had unpaid tickets and they were going to suspend your license. And my mom, again, my 92-year-old mother got the Easy Pass one, and she thought it was funny because she doesn't even drive anymore. And she's like, they're telling me, if my license is going to be suspended. She's like, yeah, go ahead, But again, any legitimate business or government agency is not going to contact you the way. The IRS never calls. They will only contact you via regular U.S. mail. And even if you were going to be arrested because you didn't show up for jury, you're going to get a notice in the mail. They're not going to call you and threaten you like that. Computer tech scams were a big thing. They would call you and they would say, oh, there's something wrong with your computer. I'm going to help you fix it. The one thing I will tell you about these scammers is most of them are not even in the United States. And the problem is that people will give them money and there's not a lot we can do about it because they're not here and the money is gone. So just to give you a little quick story. So one of my partners who is since retired, we're sitting in our office at police headquarters and his cell phone rings and it's a scammer saying that there's something wrong with his Mac. Now we're at headquarters, of course, and he doesn't even own a Mac. Police officers, the way we are, he wants to mess with this guy a little bit, just, because what we figure is, well, the longer he's on the phone with Gary, the last time he's going to have to call somebody else to try to scam them out of money. So we're trying to keep this guy on the phone as long as we can. So my partner says to him, well, you know what? I'm at work. Can you call me on my work phone? Gives them the number. Now, when you call the Livingston Police Department, you go through this whole menu telling you it's the police department and, all the different, extensions for the different units and things like that. So the guy at this point knows that he's calling a police department. Does not care. And he calls back and he actually calls my partner's extension and my partner picks up his phone on his desk and now he's talking to the guy on that phone. And again, he keeps him on the phone a little bit, but I will say, when he finally, tells the guy that, he knows he's scamming him and, the words that came out of that scammer's mouth would make a sailor blush. I was like, wow, they get very angry if you insist. Yeah. But again, he was not afraid that he was talking to a police officer in the United States because he pretty much knew there was nothing we could do. So that's the way they are. They're very brash. They're very brazen because they know that there is pretty much no consequences. And if they don't get you, they'll get somebody else. They pretty much know that. And they may try all day, and they might call 25 people and get nobody, then they get one. And that's all they need. So we don't want any of you to be that one. Real quick, I want to talk about sweetheart scams. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but so it can be in person or it can be online. And there's an encounter, if it's in person, it might be maybe at the store or somewhere where somebody bumps into you and then oh, hello, how are you? And they strike up a friendship with you. Same thing online where, somehow they find you and they reach out to you and try to, start conversations with you. Most of the time, it's someone much younger, trying to establish a relationship with somebody older. And they become very quickly, they will insert themselves into the person's life, even saying, I love you, I want to be with you after a fairly short time. And, a lot of people, they may be lonely, and this is, something that's delightful to them to have somebody that's younger paying attention to them. But inevitably what happens is then, kind of like the other one, the person all of a sudden needs money. They need some sort of expensive operation, or somebody in their family does, and they start asking for money. And unfortunately, the person thinks that this is their girlfriend, boyfriend, and will give them money, sometimes a lot of money. And unfortunately, family members may try to intervene, but the person thinks, well, this person loves me. They would never do that to me. And I'm not saying that they're, listen, most people are wonderful, honest people. It's just not that everybody is. And, not saying that you can't strike up a friendship with somebody younger, because it definitely could happen, but just be careful when they try to move the relationship very quickly. That's usually a red flag that they are trying to do it for their own purposes. And the same thing when they do it online. A lot of times, they're out of the country. They will say there's no way for you to actually meet them, because we all know that online you can be anybody. I could be a 12-year-old girl, or I could be an 85-year-old man. Like, you have no idea who anybody really is. So the anonymity of the internet has spawned, so many other things, because it's so easy to be anybody. So let's talk about some online scams. Probably heard of phishing. That's when someone will send out an email, and we remember the old ones that were very obvious. Hi, I am the king of, whatever country, and I need to move, $250 million to the United States, and I want you to help me. I don't even know you, but I picked you because I think you're trustworthy. And they would ask for all your information so that they could transfer the money to you. And then they were going to give you a nice fee for helping them. Again, there were people that fell for that, because again, that prize was dangled, that money, because of course we all want money, right? People fell for it, even though it's fairly obvious. But they've gotten a lot better now, because now the internet's been around for a while. They will send out emails a lot of times from the bank. It will, they'll take the logos. You can go online and get the logos from the bank. That's very easy. And they make it look very legitimate. And again, there's going to be that sense of urgency. It's going to be, we're closing your account because, there's something wrong with it and you haven't fixed it. If you want to fix it, log in here and give us your information and we'll take care of it. And everybody's going, they're gonna freeze my money. They're gonna close my account. They start to panic. Take a step back, think about what's going on. Call the bank from the number that you have, not any number that they give you. See what's going on, okay? Do not ever click on links in emails from people you don't know, because a lot of times it will take you to a website that they want you to go to, and you start putting in information, and now they have it. So now, scams via text, they call that smishing. And what they do now is they will, a lot of times, I've gotten UPS, FedEx, they'll say, oh, we're having trouble delivering your package. Please click on this link. And even if you didn't order anything, you might be like, well, maybe I ordered something, I don't know. Don't fall for it. Another thing that they will do is pretend that they have texted you by accident. They'll say, oh, I had a great time last night. And then, they want the person to, text them back, well, who is this? I wasn't anywhere last night. And then they say, oh, I'm sorry, this is a mistake. I thought I was texting Rachel. But hi, it's nice to meet you. And, a lot of times it's not even a person, it's a bot. It's just a computer that's doing this. And it's going back and forth. And then when they trade pictures, it's Indiana Jones is the picture that the person said. They were pretending to be Indiana Jones. I just found that humorous, because a lot of people like messing with these scammers and do things like that. So if you do get one of these smishing messages where they're trying to scam you via text, if you send the message to 7726, that will help your wireless provider to block it. You can also report things to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commissions. They're the ones that oversee all this kind of stuff. So the website is reportfraud.ftc.gov. So if you looked online, you can find it, but it's the FTC that you want to send it to. And obviously, if you ever feel like you've been the victim of a scam, alert the police right away. Like I said, sometimes we might be able to help you. A lot of times we may not be able to, but we still like to get the reports because then we know what's going on. Because again, there are always new scams happening. I usually look to see what's new before I come out and do one of these presentations. And like I said, the newest one was you have tickets and you're going to get arrested scam, but there's always new things around. So again, just be very careful. If they're asking you for personal information, you are Fort Knox. Keep it locked up. Don't give it out easily, okay? Unless you are absolutely sure who you're giving that information to, don't give it out.